Hello and welcome to Tool Time. The topic for discussion tonight is the three major musts as part of the notorious 5 ways I might upset myself. This is a common human thing that I might do. As I go through this presentation, perhaps I'll cut myself some slack and breathe. So if I feel myself getting upset or disturbed, I might breathe in through my nose for 4, in, 2, 3, 4, hold for a second, breathe out through my mouth for 8, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, hold for a second. And do that 3 or 4 times, especially focusing on the way my belly or diaphragm moves in and out as I breathe, focusing on my diaphragmic breathing. Apparently, focusing on my diaphragmic or belly breathing reduces nervous tension by 40 to 60%. I commend that to you as something potentially helpful. Having said all that, discomfort might actually indicate that growth is occurring or is becoming a bit more possible or likely. So I might actually sit with any discomfort or feelings of uncertainty and just see where I could be headed. In this particular presentation, I might choose to do what I can with what I have where I am. Do what I can with what I have where I am. In this presentation, and as a result of it, I ain't got to do nothing. I'm not required to do anything. I might choose to, however. If I see something in this presentation and I think, wow, I don't like the look of that, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that or want to do it, I might put it aside and never look at it again, or I might come back to it at some point in the future when I feel it could be helpful. I ain't got to do nothing. If I see something in this presentation that I think, hey, I think that might help me, I might actually grab it and run with it. It's entirely up to me. I'm not required to do anything. I might choose to, however. A quote taken from someone will be changed to make it first person, less absolute or telling, and it is still attributed to that person where it is possible. Where 2 question marks appear, please consider pausing this presentation and writing your answer in your journal or on a piece of paper, or just thinking about it in your own mind. Entirely up to you. If you'd like to do that, of course, you ain't got to do nothing. Perhaps the focus today might be on choosing to have, that's easy for me to say. Perhaps the focus today might be on choosing to hang on to a helpful thought a little more often rather than a common human unhelpful thought of mine. It is held in rational emotive behaviour therapy, REBT, that a thought maybe leads to a feeling, which perhaps leads to a behaviour. A thought, a feeling, a behaviour. More as an interactional system, per Albert Ellis, the founder of rational emotive behaviour therapy. So rather than going around in a circle from thinking, feeling, behaviour, perhaps it can go a little bit back the other way. So maybe look to alter a behaviour or thought of mine to perhaps alter a feeling of mine. An example of perhaps more helpful thought is framing or reframing, an attempt to call it like it really is. So rather than treating my unhelpful habit as my greatest friend in the world and it would be such a shame if I lost it, I might call it my POC, poison of choice, my DOC, destruction of choice, or my POU, my poison once used, pronounced poo, or other reframing that is more helpful to me in order to put it into a place where I can a little bit more easily just get rid of it or move away from it. Other people have said my human potential reducer. Wow. My life leveler, my relationship killer, my employment ender, my life ruiner, my chemical prison. Wow. Perhaps I'll have a go at reframing if I choose to. Maybe I'll change the frame and change the game. Please consider clicking on the link below in the description to do with reframing. What have you used or might you use to describe your unhelpful addictive behaviour or substance? Please consider stopping this presentation, pausing it for a moment, and just jotting down what you've used or you might use. What might an unhelpful belief be? UB, sometimes referred to as IB, irrational belief. In rational emotive behaviour therapy, Albert Ellis said he could have easily called it unhelpful, but he chose to call it irrational. And I prefer unhelpful from the feedback of a person in a meeting who said everything appeared to be perfectly irrational at the time. Unhelpful was perhaps a lot easier to identify. So I do thank that person. UB, an unhelpful belief, tends to be rigid, inflexible, and not very much in line with actual reality. Tends to produce an unhelpful result. UB, an unhelpful belief, tends to interfere with my psychological well-being, thanks a bunch, and tends to get in the way of me pursuing a personally meaningful goal of mine, a goal constructed perhaps via my hierarchy of values. Please consider clicking on the hierarchy of values link in the description box below. Helpful belief, HB, tending to energise me. Unhelpful belief, tending to deplete me. Neutral belief, tending to do neither. How likely is a belief to be neutral? Probably not very likely. What might this thought or action be doing for me right now? An insight from rational emotive behaviour therapy, REBT, might be a possible further opportunity for my further emotional growth. Rather than what occurs, it is maybe what I tell myself, the story I create or have pre-prepared for ready reference about what is occurring or has occurred. That is perhaps a challenge I might choose to take on. I might choose to catch it, challenge it a little bit when I'm able, and change it a little bit as I am able, a bit more able from time to time. The notorious 5 ways I might choose to upset myself. The number 1 of these is demandingness. Should, must, can't. Making an unreasonable demand of myself or another or my life, my world, which may often lead to a maladaptive behaviour from me. Rats. This demand of myself and other or my life is a thing I may choose to become a bit more aware of and look to perhaps turn it back into a preference or discard it. The first major must, might you have a bit of it in mind? If you have been acquainted with it, what part springs to mind now? Please consider stopping the presentation or pausing it and maybe jotting something down. Number 1, the major must, I must be perfect in everything I do at all times. So not just a lowercase wishy-washy thing, a capitalised must with an exclamation mark to show it is a demand. And of course, there's more. I must be loved by everyone, important and significant to me at all times, and everyone else for that matter. In full, I must be perfect in everything I do at all times, be loved and respected by everyone important and significant to me at all times, and win the approval of all others at all times, or else I am no good, a failure, as well as unlovable. And I cannot stand it when I fall a bit short. Rationality, trust you're keeping well. Rationality came up with the shorthand version, I must be perfect and loved at all times or I am worthless. Thanks, Rationality. Trust you're keeping well. Question to ponder. When might I perhaps see this thought a little bit in myself or in an action or inaction of mine, and how might it potentially be unhelpful for me? Or might this be a way my mind is oriented? How might this be getting a little in the way of me taking an action I might prefer to take? Major must number 1 in disguise. I'm not good enough. I'm a fake. I'm an imposter. I'll be found out. I won't measure up. I can't do this. I deserve whatever happens to me. Gee, brain, thanks for all your help. I might seek distance from a thought as an observer. Rather than thinking I am an imposter, I might think I am having a thought that I am an imposter. Or further, I notice that I am having a thought that I am an imposter. So trying to get some distance from the thought and turn myself more into an observer of what goes on in my wonderful brain. I might name the origin of this thought as the salesman, the nosy neighbour, or Wile E. Coyote, super genius, yes. Or get it to speak in Homer Simpson's voice. Marge, I'm having a feeling that I'm an imposter. That's the worst Homer Simpson impersonation you'll ever hear. Or Sylvester the cat, suffering succotash. I'm having a thought that I'm an imposter. My challenge might be to perhaps look for the degree to which I appear to believe this or appear to act like this might be a bit of my reality. This might be a condition that I place on myself, a requirement, an essential outcome, an orientation of my wonderful mind. The first major must might form the basis of my conditional self-rejection. I didn't do what I must do, a condition I placed on myself. I didn't fulfill my condition or demand of myself, so I am a complete failure. If I'm thinking this way, rather than being broken or a robot or from another planet or need to throw myself out and start again, this is actually a human way of behaving or thinking or acting that is sort of pre-programmed in. It's not inevitable, however. I didn't meet my inflexible, unrealistic expectation of my precious self, overly concerned with another's imagined opinion of me. I might be tending to measure my self-worth by an achievement and my popularity. Might lead to a lack of me taking a healthy risk, not saying what suits me, not working for a promotion, not testing a skill limit of mine. My slightly different life might begin at an edge of my comfort zone. Possible antidote, dub, dispute an unhelpful belief or thought, open-ended question it, done with curiosity, dub or dib in a handbook, ABC disputation, increase a little the notion of possibility. I might choose to dispute this thought or belief, open-ended question it, more than a yes or no required, examine it gently, thoroughly, curiously, lead it into the light, hold it up to the light, look at it, perhaps through it. It has been trying to keep me safe. So it's not trying to stop me or keep me small. It's just trying to keep me safe and untroubled, unfrustrated, more certain. Rather than it being wrong or right, how helpful might it be for me at this point? Where is it written in stone in the universe that I must be loved and be perfect? Because I say a person loving me must happen, how does it then follow that it will happen? What is the likelihood that I, as a human, might achieve and faultlessly maintain perfection? Hasn't happened so far. How might this belief be helping me keep safe, sober, and alive? Even if it is true, how might I put it aside and give it less value? In disguise, I'm not good enough. What's enough mean? I can do a job. I'm a fake. How might I do a helpful performance or improve on my past performance? I'll be found out. How might I do a more helpful thing? I'll be found out to be human. Well, that's a surprise. In disguise some more, I'll not measure up. How might I do a part of this performance well or a bit better than I did last time? How might I accept feedback and grow? I can't do this yet. How do I really know I can't do it? I haven't practiced it and had a go at it and tried it. A monkey can learn sign language. Hand me that banana. I'm going to learn sign language. Brain, you have no idea what I might do. So STFU, sometime fill up with helpful stuff. I don't know what that means anyway. Anyway, brain, you can work it out. I might choose to move over time a little more toward USA, unconditional self-acceptance. I have one human being's worth of value, which cannot be quantified, regardless of a past choice or experience, helpful or unhelpful. I might choose to grow, develop and evolve a little bit to increase the chance that a choice of mine might be a bit more helpful. Anyone who's saying this is easy has obviously never done it. What I might like to entertain is the thought that perhaps it's a little bit more possible than my wonderful brain is telling me right at the moment. Thanks a bunch, brain, for being there. I might perhaps prefer that I always acted in a helpful way. However, it tends to be other than human to do so. I might choose to stand it when I fall a bit short of acting in a helpful or perfect way. I might choose to catch myself doing something mostly okay and might look to express gratitude when a thing goes mostly okay for me. I might choose to take it on the chin when a thing doesn't go at all okay for me. I may still not like it, that it didn't go at all okay. However, I'll suck it up and tough it out. An idea is that I might, with practice, be able to catch myself thinking an unhelpful thought or belief, UB. I might be able to eventually catch a demand, a must, a should, or ought to, or have to, or I can't stand it, and maybe let it go just a little more. Then maybe I might choose to do or think about something else a bit more helpful or constructive. I might still choose to have the thing I would rather experience as perhaps a preference rather than an all-consuming outcome that must happen. All a common human way for me to look at something. In this way, making room for something potentially more freeing, something more my life affirming. Rather than grab hold of this must and breathe emotion into it and become it, I might choose to let it pass through me. Rather than attempt to control what I think and when, I might instead choose what thought I pull in and hold close to me. Thinking silly things is a common human thing, thanks, brain. I might choose to think a little more about a value of mine instead and breathe a little more life into it. My precious self, how might this thought or action be promoting my productivity and my creativity? How might this thought or action be strengthening my persistence and my self-discipline? How might this thought or action be serving as a platform to help me propel my personal growth? My precious self, how might this thought or action be linking to my sense of emotional well-being and positive mental health? How might this thought or action be leading to a realistic sense of perspective in me? How might this thought or action be directing my effort along a hierarchy of values path of mine? If you haven't had a look at the hierarchy of values, please do consider clicking on the link in the description below and maybe having a look at it or even choosing to actually use it. It's entirely up to you, of course. You ain't got to do nothing. How might this thought or action be helping to support or express a value of mine? The second major must, might you have a bit of it in mind? If you've been exposed to it before, you can guess where we could be going with it. Please consider pausing this presentation and maybe writing down a bit of it. Major must number 2, an other person must behave as I think they should at all times. And of course, a capitalised must. And of course, there's more. An other person must do the right thing at all times. In full, this other person must behave as I think they should at all times, do the right thing at all times, treat me with respect and consideration at all times, or else they are a no good, worthless, damnable person and they deserve to be punished. They deserve to roast in hell. And I'll be their chief roaster as soon as I get there. And with this attitude, won't be long. Thanks, rationality, for the shorthand. And other must treat me exactly how I want to be treated at all times, or they are worthless. This might form the basis of conditional other rejection. Oh, there's a good chance that's going to be happening. This person didn't behave how I tell myself they must behave, so they are a failure. Worse, they are an enemy. Potential antidote, disputation, dispute and unhelpful belief. 3 ways I might. Please consider clicking on these 2 links in the description below and perhaps having a little bit of a look at them or use them. Entirely up to you, of course. You don't have to do anything. I ain't got to do nothing. Logical, how does it actually follow that? What I'm saying is true. Scientific or evidence-based, where is it written in stone in the universe that what I'm thinking is true or is not true? How might I prove or disprove it? What is the weight of evidence really? Thanks, brain. Practical, how is holding close this belief or thought helping me to stay safe, sober and alive, even if it is true? I might simply choose to let it go a little and not dwell on it. Maybe I might choose to move over time more toward UOA, unconditional other acceptance. This person has one human being's worth of value, which cannot be quantified regardless of their past choice or my experience of this part of their behaviour. I might prefer if this person always acted in a helpful way. However, this tends to be not humanly possible. I might choose to stand it if they don't act in a helpful way. I might choose to forgive them in their humanness. I might choose to catch them doing something reasonably right and be more on the lookout for that. If they are consistently unhelpful in an action or word, I may choose to distance myself from them, either temporarily or permanently. It's entirely my self-protection that I need to be aware of and look for, or probably more helpful to do that. I am other than a doormat. I might have a right to ask to be treated with respect and consideration. I might choose to give myself that right. This is other than I have the right to be treated with respect. I am unable to control another person. I prefer that you. I am asking that you. So I have the right to ask to be treated with respect and consideration because I give myself that right. I don't have the right to be treated with respect and consideration because that comes from you and your decisions. However, I give myself the right to ask. I would much prefer not to. However, I will distance myself from you if you continue to behave in a disrespectful or unhelpful way. I quite like you. I'd really like to keep you in my life. However, I find this unhelpful to me as a person. Another, how might this thought or action of mine be supporting a positive, constructive or helpful relationship? How might this thought or action be promoting my or this other person's accountability without unhelpful blame or condemnation? How might this thought or action be furthering the empowerment of this other person by me? I might try to be especially careful of doing a double whammy on myself. This other person must treat me exactly how I want to be treated at all times or I am worthless. Wow, a major must 1-2 combination, an entirely common human thing that I might find myself doing. So if I think I'm broken or a robot or from another planet or need to throw myself out and start again, turns out I've got a case of humanness. The third major must, might you have a bit of it in mind that you'd like to jot down on your piece of paper or in your journal if you've seen it before or you've got a bit of an idea where this could be headed? Please consider pausing the tape. Life, my world, must give me what I want at all times. So not just a lowercase wishy-washy thing, but a capitalised must to show it is a demand. As expected, there's more. Life, my world, must give me nothing I don't want at all times. Wow. In full, life, my world, must give me what I want at all times. Nothing I don't want at all times. Go the way I want it to at all times. Be easily enjoyable at all times and hassle-free at all times, or my life is terrible and worthless and I can't stand it. Nicknamed I must have Disneyland without having to line up for a ride. Piece of cake. Shorthand, life and the world in general must fit my personal definition of fairness and justice, or it is worthless. Thanks, rationality. This might form the basis of conditional life rejection. Life, my world, didn't give me what I tell myself it must give me, so life, my world, is a hostile place. Worse, life is out to get me. How exhausting might these three major musts be, and potentially funny once I spot them. Thanks, Aptenia. Potential antidote, disputing an unhelpful belief. Dub, dispute an unhelpful belief 3 ways I might. Maybe simply relaxing away from this type of belief a little and letting it drift a little from my grasp. So perhaps it's a simple matter of relaxing a little bit away. Simple doesn't equal easy, of course. ULA, unconditional life acceptance. Life, my world, is a helpful thing in it or an unhelpful thing in it. This thing has occurred without fear or favour. I would prefer if a thing was always helpful. I'd freaking love it. However, this is likely unrealistic, as proven that way so far. If a thing isn't all that helpful, I might choose to stand it. I might choose to dwell on a helpful outcome and be grateful for it, or that part of it I find helpful. It may be true when I use planning, practice, persistence, and patience, I perhaps get a little luckier over time. My life, how might this thought or action be encouraging my acceptance and tolerance? How might this thought or action be correlating with a healthy risk-taking initiative of mine to go for a job, approach a potential date, speak in public, stand up for an issue? How might this thought or action be stimulating a little my openness to an experience or a little bit more adventurous outlook in me? Demandingness is seen to be a common human thing. So if I thought I was broken or a robot or from another planet or need to throw myself out and start again, looks like I'm human. Who would have thought? To elevate a reasonable desire or preference or want of mine towards an ultimatum, I prefer it, so I must have it, or else I will do something drastic. Life, you or I, will experience a drastic consequence. I will cut off my nose to spite my face. You watch. Perhaps looking to increase my awareness a little that my belief may disguise itself as a fact. Thanks, Two Putts, for that. I think it, so it must be absolutely true. Please consider clicking on the link below. Musts, 3 major musts, and a possible solution. Perhaps I might choose to have a little more thought about a thought of mine, identify a bit better my UB, unhelpful belief. It might simply be a belief or orientation of my mind that doesn't work for me as well as another belief might. It is rather moving a little more toward whatever works a bit better for me, and as it likely turns out, probably a bit better for another and my life in general. The notorious 5 ways I may choose to unnecessarily upset myself. These are common human things. Demandingness, should, must. I must succeed and obtain approval. This other should do what I want them to. Life, my world, must do okay by me. Dispute, unhelpful belief. Disputation in the ABC of REBT. Please consider clicking the links below. Overgeneralizing and absolute. This is good for everybody. It worked for me. This is a lousy outfit. I tried it and it didn't work for me. I failed at this one thing, so I must be a failure. Being on the lookout for a word like everyone, no one, all, none, every, nothing, everything, always, never. That way painting myself into a corner where I can't possibly do anything else. Awfulizing and wonderfulizing. It's terrible, it's horrible, it's awful. A setback is seen as a major catastrophe. I lapsed 2 weeks ago. Isn't that just awful? I'm doing great. I've made it. Isn't it just wonderful? How might I move a little away from awfulizing or wonderfulizing? Whatever I think is going to happen in the future or has happened in the past is something I am making happen today. It exists only as electrical impulses in my wonderful, darling brain. I might seek to stop and ask how true today might this story be I am making happen. I might seek to stop and ask how much of this story I am living in is happening in the real world today. Brain. I might look to put it in a bit. I might look to put it a little bit into perspective. Easy for me to say. How might it compare to being fed feet first through a mulching machine on a frosty day? Thanks, JVB. How might a warmer day make that better? I think once your feet hit the mulching machine, you wouldn't worry what the temperature was. Wonderfulizing, when I fall in love, I have a human tendency to only see all of the greatness in my beloved, a common human thing. A person tends to be comprised of a mixture of helpful and unhelpful traits and actions. When my relationship runs out of fairy dust, there might be a resentment or a disappointment. A potential solution, I might choose to be aware of this phenomenon when the sailing is other than smooth. I might choose to entertain the helpful idea that nobody is completely wonderful or completely terrible. On balance, do I still like them a whole lot? I might do a benefit cost matrix on them or a cost benefit analysis, whichever I'm familiar with. Please consider clicking the link below. This idea could have a more sustainable positive impact on a longer term relationship. Blowing a thing out of proportion seems to be a common human thing to do. Thanks, brain. Allowing this to continue for a longish length of time might be probably unhelpful. As I emotionally get my feet under me a bit more, then I may question a belief of mine a little more. Rating or blaming, the fourth way that I might choose to upset myself. Judging, label attachment, I'm worthless because I made a mistake. The world's a rotten place to live because of this one thing. If it wasn't for you, you suck because of that one thing you did. Problem with rating or blaming, what good might rating or blaming do? What harm might rating or blaming do? A person might tend to push back, sometimes very hard. What scale might I painstakingly invent to rate myself or another? How might I compel the entire world to use my freshly invented scale? Not too easily. Potential solution, unconditional self-acceptance, unconditional other acceptance, unconditional life acceptance. USA, UOA, ULA. Acceptance, of course, is not approval. I can accept something without approving of it. I can accept something without even liking it one little bit. Lowered frustration tolerance, LFT, lowered discomfort tolerance, LDT, or lowered uncertainty tolerance might be a way that I could unhelpfully and unnecessarily upset myself. I can't quit smoking. It would be too hard for me. God grant me patience and hurry up and do it. Altering a behaviour of mine tends to be uncomfortable for a time. Is it ever? So changing from something that I know to something I don't know causes uncertainty, frustration, and discomfort. A potentially unhelpful belief, UB, an existing condition must be changed to give me what I want. Otherwise, I can't stand it and I can't be happy at all. I must have immediate gratification and have to have it, or else I can't stand it and my life is awful. I can't stand it-itis is the inflammation caused by these ways of thinking. All common human things. Potentially helpful belief. I prefer an existing condition alter, and I might choose to work towards altering it if and when I can. I like immediate gratification, and I understand it might not happen or be in my better interest. Putting it off for a while might assist me to grow and develop, and I'll like it a lot better when I get it. While a hassle or frustration might tend to be a common part of my life and I may find it inconvenient, I might still choose to stand it. This standing process might tend to be a part of me growing a little and living my life. When I feel I might have identified an unhelpful belief, maybe by how I am tending to feel or act or not act, then I might choose to move to disputation or another technique I like, somehow work to let it go a little at some point. How might I be choosing to feel? By keeping this thought or action more in my life. What might be a more helpful belief? My helpful belief might represent a more reasonable, objective, flexible, or constructive conclusion or inference about my reality that better supports my survival, my happiness, or a healthy or helpful action or result of mine. That sounds like a helpful belief for sure. Maybe I might choose to become slightly more aware of my common human must, should, have to, can't, looking to perhaps reduce it a little toward a preference and be a little more accepting rather than approving of a current situation. Moving from absolute must, should, have to, can't, need to, want, demand, more towards preference-based ways of thinking and being, desire, like, select, choose, rather, prefer, ask. Want's a difficult word because it can be taken either way, either as a demand or as a lowercase preference. So it's probably better to leave it on the demand side. Move a little along the line when I can, relax into it a little bit as and when I'm able. Thought, feel, behave. Thought, behave, feel, thought. As an interactional system, probably unhelpful to have a feeling of mind mindlessly driving my behavior or thought. Rather than what is occurring, it is maybe the story I tell myself about what is occurring, the story I create about it or keep retelling that is perhaps more important. I might choose a little bit as and when I'm able to let it go a bit more over time. Just take a bit of time, sit with it. Oh, I see what's happening. Let it go as I am able. My new life might begin at an edge of my comfort zone, it was said before. It's a must of mine that tends to make me anxious and tends to keep me stuck. Tackling a must might be a helpful way to reduce an anxiety I cause myself to feel. Thanks, Michael Edelstein. My improving recognition or a bit of a realization or an awareness of some sort might be an important step in me altering a behavior of mine. Thanks, Two Putts. Rest in peace. It might also be the start of me becoming a little more me. Chapter 2, Worry, Sharks in the Swimming Pool. Please consider clicking the link below. Michael Edelstein put his entire book on the internet. His publisher quite rightly got him to take most of it down, but he left 3 chapters there. And one of those is Sharks in the Swimming Pool. I commend it to you as certainly worth a read. Where you don't have to do anything. You ain't got to do nothing. It's my must that tends to make me anxious and tends to keep me stuck. Tackling my must might be a helpful way to reduce my anxiety. Thanks, Michael. Exchange vocabulary, another look. Please consider clicking the link below and looking at another benefit of exchanging vocabulary. Congratulations on using your power of choice and taking an action to be here. It's not only potentially a little bit helpful, it doesn't look all that powerless to me. Thanks, brain. These are the resources that we use to construct this presentation. Please consider clicking on the link in the description below and having a look at the resources. If someone tells me that what is in this presentation is easy, it means they have obviously not tried to do it. A thing that I might like to entertain or consider, my wonderful brain, is that a thing in here is perhaps a little more possible than my wonderful darling brain is telling me at the moment. Whatever I can manage to do at this particular time is wonderfully okay. I am at the coalface, so to speak. I'm the one doing the work. If I can manage to do it or feel that I need to step back a little bit and attack it again a little bit later on, entirely up to me. I'm the person doing the work. If I got a bit from the meeting, perhaps I'll give a bit. If a light came on for me a little bit, perhaps I'll pay some of the light bill. Please consider donating to whoever or whatever helps you a little. I'd ask you to please consider donating to Greater Good at Berkeley. They've got a lot of things on their Greater Good in Action website. Both of the links are below to enable me to grow and develop as a person. I commend that to you as a worthy place to donate. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry I won't get to see you or meet you. I trust something in here was of benefit to you. I trust you have an opportunity here to grow and develop. Whatever you can manage to do or not do is wonderfully okay. All the best.